You're watching a KARK special, Coronavirus Concerns, Reopening Schools in Arkansas.
Kind of picking up the conversation where we left off, I want to bring in Little Rock Superintendent Michael Poore about some of the concerns that staff may have returning to campus.
Well, and as I shared before, we have heard those things, and one of the things that led us even to being much more strong in our wording on masks when we released the plan, that we know we needed to do that, and the different things that we plan to do with everything to sanitize the environment and to assist with social distancing. I also want to share, and I know that our educators feel this way, that there probably always is a risk in any environment, but one of the things right now with this pandemic is we have to be extra careful with how we handle situations. And to be honest with you, superintendents throughout this state have been working on that very thing, not just in getting ready for school, but we've actually had to deal with it a little bit in the months of the spring months. We've had to deal with it with the day camps that we've ran to support the medical professionals. We've had to do it with, as we've kicked up athletics. So we've really gotten pretty good at understanding what we need to do to try to make sure that we are on top of everything. But we also know that we're going to need a lot of help from our community on this matter, because the support that parents can provide us and helping families understand why masks are needed. Also being disciplined away from the school environment so that nothing can come in. So there's a lot of factors here. And I think Dr. McNulty brought up an excellent point too earlier, that this thing changes so rapidly. A month ago, this state was in a much different place than it is right now. So, between now and the next several weeks, there's no way that this won't continue to be evaluated. We won't continue to work to try to find safer ways to bring people into schools. But I want to point out one thing, that our kids do need us and do need school. Have not been in an environment that is a structured learning environment in some homes, maybe for as much as 6 months. We have the pandemic, we have the Black Lives Matter moment that is happening and continuing. There's a lot of things that our kids are dealing with, and one of the best things can happen is when they are in front of educators. And our traditional school environments do that so well. And so it's really a matter of trying to marry these two things, of knowing kids are in need, but also trying to make sure our staff feels comfortable. That's not going to be easy.
Carol Fleming, she's president of the Arkansas Education Association. I'd like to bring you into the conversation and get your thoughts on the comfort zone it is for returning to the classroom for staff and teachers.
So I'm going to first let me thank you for having me on the program tonight. I appreciate that, because that way I can bring the voice of the thousands of educators from across our state into this conversation. And what we have found, we just completed a survey, and we had just under 6,200 educators complete the survey, and that included certified as well as classified employees. So that's going to be your school bus drivers, your cafeteria workers, social workers, library media specialists, your speech language pathologists, PTs, OTs, all of those individuals who have a hand in nurturing and educating our children. And what we found was that 90% of the respondents said that they're nervous about coming back into the schools. They have serious concerns about the health of the students, and they put the health of the students before they put the health of themselves. That's where their main concern is. But again, when we look at what is considered safe, what is your definition of safe? And we believe that when we open the schools, it does have to include the advice of the medical experts. When we look at how we are going to open those schools, whether it's virtually, if it's using the digital platform, or if it's in person, that's where we have to have the voice of the educators in those conversations.
Part of the conversation, of course, obviously you're, the forefront of what your comments are is safety and health, and masks and sanitizer. It's all been added also to the supply list for this school year, and schools have got to gather that up. PPE certainly isn't cheap. Hillary Hunt talked to 2 school districts about the new cost added to this year's budget.
As students get ready to rush back to the classroom, districts are running up bills in preparation amid the coronavirus pandemic.
Ordering of PPE, new technology, putting a plan together.
William Roundtree is the superintendent of about 600 students in the Carlisle School District. He says the CARES Act added about $86,000 to their budget, but that doesn't quite cover the money their rural school district has had to spend in order to reopen at the end of August. He knows it down to the cents.
We spent about $109,784 worth of new technology, and we've spent $12,224.78 worth of PPE, and that's probably not all that will be spent in those areas.
When it comes to protecting the hundreds of students in the Carlisle School District, it's more than just making sure that those kids mask up.
If you're riding a bus, which we're going to still bus, you'll be your temperature will be taken at the bus stop.
Extra measures that come at a cost, one that's been racking up a lot higher in the Hot Springs School District that has over 3,500 students enrolled.
To date, we've spent over $159,000 on PPE.
District Media Coordinator Andrea Barnes wouldn't disclose how much it received from the CARES Act, but she says they're in good shape financially and stocked up.
Face masks, and when I say that, I'm talking about 3 per child and 2 per staff member just to begin the school year.
Like all districts, Hot Springs is doing what it can to prevent COVID-19 from creating a classroom disruption.
Every type of PPE that we can get a hold of that's recommended, we are purchasing, and we will make sure our staff members and our students are equipped with what they need to feel safe.
Big or small, both districts hope the preparations add up to an equation that eliminates the threat of COVID-19 for students when the morning bell rings on August 24th. In Central Arkansas, I'm Hillary Hunt.
Keep in mind that also schools plan to upgrade their facilities or just try to spend what money they have to maintain them. Dr. McNulty, what's the cost for PPE in your district, and how much of a burden has that put on your funds?
Well, we received $2.6 million of CARES, and that went very fast, and that covered a lot of our expenses from spring and summer in preparation for PPE, both face shields and masks. I think that as we're understanding COVID-19, we can't think in absolutes. And so, although I'm appreciative of that desire for 100% safety, I just, that just hasn't been the nature of schooling. On the other point is we just can't have a one-size-fits-all for reopening. And so for me, if we are having an outbreak in our community that's a surge, bringing students and staff together in that particular place, in that particular time, to me seems counterproductive to maintaining some control on the pandemic. Now, I know I have a doctorate, and it's got nothing to do with medicine, so I would defer that to our medical professionals. But what I've heard so far, and I appreciate, is that we're going to take a sophisticated look to reopening, or at least that should be in our intent, that if there's a surge in our community, that we have to be very cautious about bringing a lot of people together in one place. At the same time, if we have a community that has very little transmission, and I can share with you that our scholar athletes who have had COVID-19 have not transmitted it during practice, but got it in other events outside of school. So I think that other thing, how do we keep our communities safe outside of school, will keep our schools safer and keep them open.
Secretary Key, I want to get back to the cost of PPE here. Is the Department of Education in a position where a district says that, look, we've exhausted our funds to try to keep our students and faculty safe. We need more money so we can buy more sanitizer, more PPE. Will the Department of Education be there, and have they been receiving funds to hand down to districts?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bob. And I think part of our response has been all the way back in the spring, where we recognized there were certain laws, rules, and regs that, because of this pandemic, would need to be waived or set aside during the emergency. And one of those types of regulations was the restrictions on the amount of carryover districts can carry from one school year to the next school year. Federal funds and state funds. So there were a number of things that were waived regarding those restrictions, and at the federal level as well, some of the Title II funds that districts get based on the number of students they have at the poverty level or on free and reduced lunch. So a number of those things have allowed districts to continue some reserves. And then every the CARES Act fund, the Elementary and Secondary School Education Relief Fund component of the CARES Act, provided about $128 million that came into the state of Arkansas and distributed directly to the school districts. So that's something we're keeping an eye on. Our budget is set and established, and our appropriation levels are set and established by the General Assembly. And I know that we're staying in touch with the leadership, with the governor's office about the needs that are out there. And I know that our congressional delegation is also engaged in that, in keeping apprised of some of these costs. Dr. McNulty is right. The reports we've heard from school districts has been this money has gone very fast. It's been used to help cover
kind of having a little issue with the signal right there, but also coming up, something that the entire state is dealing with: broadband, or the lack thereof. Rural schools now set with the possibility of going to virtual school. Can they do it? We'll answer that, or do our best after this. You're